violence.
3 words ended the woman who calculated. Cersei Lannister spent her whole life weighing every risk before she moved. Not here. Cornered by armed men sent to drag her to a trial built to kill her, she did not bargain, and she did not flinch. She chose blood with a smile. The instant those words left her mouth, the Sept of Baelor was already a tomb, and everyone praying inside, it was already ash. This was never a decision made in a moment of pressure. You are watching the exact second a person stops being one thing and becomes another, and the camera catches it before she even moves. To calculate the atmospheric pressure of this Red Keep throne room, we must understand what these 2 people are to each other. Lancel Lannister is her cousin, once her lover. Once a frightened, eager boy she used in her bed and discarded without a thought. Now he wears the rough brown of the faith militant, a sword on his hip, and a stranger's certainty burning behind his eyes. He does not stand here as family. He stands here as a weapon of the High Sparrow, the one man in all of King's Landing who managed to break her in front of the entire city. The man whose septas cut off her hair and marched her naked through the streets while the small folk howled and spat and threw filth at the queen. His people have come to make her walk again, quietly this time, to a trial designed from the first stone to end her. Her freedom, her last living son, her name, the only thing she has not already lost, all of it now rests on what she chooses to do in the next 2 minutes inside this single room.
Your Grace, His Holiness the High Septon wishes to speak with you at the great Sept of Baelor.
His Holiness the High Septon is welcome to see me here, in the Red Keep.
Hear exactly what she does. She does not refuse outright, and she does not obey. She moves the meeting instead. She drags the entire confrontation onto stone that belongs to her, because ground she controls is the last ground anywhere in this city where she is still treated like a queen. The street outside is his. The great Sept is his. The dungeon that held her was his. This room, with its memory of her crown and her blood, is hers, and she is betting her life on the idea that the stone still answers to her. Territorial control. The instinct to force a confrontation onto ground you own rather than ground your enemy holds, because place itself becomes a kind of weapon. Watch her stay seated while armed men fill the doorway behind her cousin. She does not rise, does not straighten, does not give them the courtesy of her attention. The body that refuses to move is the entire argument she is making. Cersei is wagering everything on the belief that place still equals power, that the old rules of rank and blood will hold the line for her one more time the way they always have.
This is not a request.
It is a request, Cousin Lancel. You are asking me for something I'm refusing.
Listen to the single word she reaches for. Cousin. She slides past the armor, past the faith, past the long months of mutual loathing to remind Lancel what he once was to her and what she once was to him. Underneath that cool, even voice sits a need she would die before naming out loud. She needs to never again be a thing that gets dragged anywhere by anyone. The walk through the streets took something from her that no apology and no revenge can ever fully return, and so she plants her feet on her own floor and tries to make the world bend toward her, the way the world used to bend, back when her name alone was enough. Narcissistic mirroring. Using a shared and intimate private history to pull an opponent back into an older, smaller, more controllable version of who they used to be. By calling him cousin, Cersei is trying to dissolve the soldier standing before her and summon back the frightened boy who once did everything she asked. The wound underneath the maneuver is pure terror. Somewhere inside, she already suspects the leash has been cut clean, that the people who used to obey her no longer do, and she is yanking on it anyway, hard, just to feel whether anything at all is still tied to the other end.
Are you sure you want to refuse him?
He promised me I could stay in the Red Keep until my trial.
He made no such promises.
And the floor drops out from under her. The arrangement she believed was protecting her, the promise she had been building her entire survival around, was never made at all. The safety she planned every move around does not exist, and it never did. A person can survive losing a fight, even a humiliating one. What no one survives intact is the discovery that the rules they obeyed were only ever a story, told to keep them quiet and cooperative until the trap was ready. Every careful, clever move she made for months was a move inside a game that had no referee and no fixed board. Anomie, the disorienting state that follows the sudden collapse of the rules and norms a person believed were quietly holding their entire world in place. This is the hinge the entire scene turns on, the quiet pivot before the violence. There is no agreement, there is no protection, there is no path back to safety through good behavior, because good behavior was never going to be honored. When restraint stops buying safety, restraint stops making any sense at all, and a lifetime of careful calculation becomes a cage with an open door. Cersei is doing that brutal arithmetic in real time as he speaks, and the answer to the equation is standing 7 feet tall and silent in armor right beside her throne.
Move aside, sir. Order your man to step aside or there will be violence.
Lancel gives an order first, then a threat, climbing the ladder of force the way he was trained to. He still believes he commands this room and the people in it. He still believes the woman across from him runs on the same fear of consequence that runs every other player in this city, that she will count the cost in her head and fold the way she has folded before. He is reading aloud from a script written about a person who no longer exists. That cautious, calculating Cersei died somewhere out on the long walk through the filth and the spit and the laughter, and no one in this room except the woman herself has realized it yet. Terminal disinhibition, the internal switch that flips when a person believes they have already lost everything worth protecting, after which the fear that once governed every choice simply stops working on them entirely. Lancel is threatening a woman who has nothing left for him to threaten. The walk stripped away her dignity. The cell stripped away her freedom. The broken promise just now stripped away the last illusion of safety, one careful piece at a time, until there was nothing left to hold over her head. A person guarding something precious can always be deterred by the threat of losing it. A person who is guarding nothing at all is the most dangerous creature in any room she walks into, and Lancel has just made the mistake of pointing a sword in her direction.
I choose violence.
Not shouted, not snarled through gritted teeth. Spoken gently, almost warmly, the way you might choose a wine for dinner, with the smallest curl of a smile at the corner of her mouth. Cersei is not picking a tactic in this single breath of air. She is naming a self she intends to be from now on. For her whole life, violence was the last resort, the messy place that cleverness went to die when every better option had failed. Here, for the first time, she lifts it up to a first principle, a preference, and she lets the word sit on her tongue like something that tastes of pure relief after years of swallowing her own rage. The mountain seizing the nearest man and crushing his skull against the marble in a single motion is only the punctuation on a sentence she had already finished writing in her head. The real event happened a heartbeat earlier, behind her eyes, where no editor could cut to it. She crossed a border there, from a woman who fears the fire to a woman entirely willing to become the fire herself, and a body breaks open on the floor to mark the exact place she stepped over the line. The blood spreading across the pale stone is simply the receipt for a purchase she made in silence, before a single body hit the floor. Everyone else in the room thinks the violence started when the mountain moved. It started earlier, in her, when she decided it would.
Please tell His High Holiness he's always welcome to visit.
One quiet word of approval spoken over a fresh corpse. Then a pleasantry, smooth and gracious as poured wine, as though a man's skull were not opened across the stones at her feet. The calm is the worst part of the entire exchange, worse than the killing. There is no rage here, no snapped wire, no wild loss of control that a person might recover from and regret. Cersei did not break down in this room the way her enemies hoped she eventually would. She arrived somewhere instead. The perfect composure is the proof that this will not fade by morning and will not be apologized for. This is simply who she is from now until the end, and Lancel turns and retreats slowly, finally understanding that he was sent to collect a frightened queen and walked instead into a room with something that no longer has a name. He came believing he held the power of the High Sparrow and the whole faith behind him. He leaves knowing that none of it touched her, that every threat slid off her like water, and that the woman he once shared a bed with will outlast every man who tried to break her. The dead sparrow stays on her floor. She does not look at him. She has already moved on to the next thing she intends to burn. But here is what the show never told you. In George R.R. Martin's novels, this exact scene does not exist anywhere. The books have not yet reached this point in Cersei's story, and on the page she has not made this choice. The wildfire that later swallows the Sept of Baelor grows from a thread the author planted seasons before, the hidden caches of wildfire buried in secret under the streets of King's Landing by the Mad King Aerys Targaryen during Robert's rebellion. Aerys wanted to burn his whole city to green ash rather than hand it to his enemies, and he died with the order burn them all caught forever in his throat, cut down by the knight sworn to protect him. The show reaches back, takes the Mad King's ending, and places it deliberately into Cersei's waiting hands, then lets her pick it up on purpose with a perfectly clear head and a glass of wine. What was raving, foaming madness in Aerys becomes cold and patient arithmetic in her. The terror of it is not that she lost her mind in some fever. The terror is that she kept her mind completely, looked at the green fire with full understanding, and chose it anyway. The most dangerous person at any negotiating table is never the one holding the most leverage or the loudest voice. The dangerous one is the person who has quietly decided, somewhere you could not see, that they no longer need the deal, the relationship, or your approval to keep living their life. The moment a person stops asking themselves what they stand to lose, every tool you carried into the room to manage them goes dead in your hand at the same time. You cannot threaten someone with the loss of a thing they have already grieved and buried. Watch carefully for the opponent who goes strangely calm in the exact moment you think you have finally cornered them. That sudden stillness is almost never surrender, however much it looks like it. Far more often, it is the precise second they became willing to bring the entire roof down on the room, with you still standing underneath it, because they have decided they do not mind being buried too. Here is the question worth sitting with. Was this the moment Cersei became the villain, or was she the first person in that room honest enough to admit what everyone in King's Landing had always been willing to do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next.